typically aren't really even aware of the scale of those that are missing, which is more than 80,000 Americans missing from our previous conflicts going back to World War II. And if you add
80,000?
more than 80,000, and if you add training to that, it's close to another 20,000, encroaching on 100,000 people missing.
80,000 soldiers still missing in action. President and CEO of Project Recover, Derek Abbey, joins me today where he tells us why that number is so high and how they work tirelessly all across the globe to bring these soldiers home. So, let's do it.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every star.
Derek, it is a pleasure today. I I really want you to know what a rarity you guys are because the issue that you tackle, I have never heard of anyone in my life making their career revolve around this. It's like so refreshing knowing that you're out here doing this type of work. If you don't mind introducing, really what you guys do exactly, a little
Yeah.
bit of background and how the organization started and kind of where it is today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to kind of share our story with you. So, my name is Derek Abbey. I'm the president and CEO of an organization called Project Recover, and we are a nonprofit organization that searches for, ultimately locates and repatriates Americans missing in action from our previous wars. And our organization has been around for, in some capacity now, close to 30 years. Started
Well,
as a very, very grassroots organization by our founder, Pat Scannon, in about 1993 were the roots of it. And it grew from an individual to a small volunteer group to the nonprofit that it is. And then we started partnering with incredible institutions like the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the University of Delaware that allowed us to really, truly scale our work to a worldwide mission. But yeah, it started when Pat was on a group that was searching for a Japanese trawler that at the time Ensign George Herbert Walker Bush had sunk during World War II, and it was sunk around the nation of Palau in the South Pacific. And Pat and the team went out there. They found it relatively quickly, and so he had time on the backside of that mission to spend in Palau. And him and his wife hired a guide, and they took them to World War II wreckage, which is what Pat was really interested in. And one of the first sites the guide took him to was a wing in shallow water, and Pat quickly realized that it was a B-24 wing, American, and so he asked what happened to the wing or what happened to the airplane, what happened to the crew, and the guy didn't have the answer, so he took it upon himself to start investigating that and quickly found out that there were a number of losses during World War II in and around the nation of Palau, and several still missing, a couple hundred people still missing from that war. So started investigating further and going back to the country to search the jungles and the waters for those that are missing. And after a couple of years, figured out, perhaps I should do this with other people. It's not quite the safest thing to be traipsing through the
yeah, I was
jungle by
gonna say,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. And so he created what was called at the time the Bent Prop Project. And that small group of people would do one mission a year, all self-funded, to the nation of Palau to search the jungles and waters for those that were missing, and had a lot of success, and did that for several years until about 2012. And we were in Palau for a mission, and representatives from Scripps Institution of Oceanography were there, and representatives from the University of Delaware kind of asked, "What are you guys doing?" And they asked what we were doing, and they had the technology, kind of we had the mission, and so we decided it made sense to start working together, and they could really advance this mission and make it even safer and more efficient with the technology that they were using. And we created what was called at the time a partnership, which is Project Recover. And it was a partnership between the Bent Prop Project nonprofit and those institutions. And then we really scaled that, and that allowed us to scale our mission to a worldwide mission. We've been to 21 different countries now, and multiple conflicts, World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm. We also search for training, people that have been lost
Yeah,
in
because there's
training.
about a couple times a year, there's always like a helicopter that goes down out in like San
Yeah.
Diego or something like that.
Well, people typically aren't really even aware of the scale of those that are missing, which is more than 80,000 Americans missing from our previous conflicts going back to World War II. And if you add
80,000?
more than 80,000, and if you add training to that, it's close to another 20,000. Encroaching on 100,000 people missing. And even though those that were lost during training are not designated MIA by the Department of Defense, they're still just as missing to their families, but they're missing off of our coasts or in our Great Lakes or in our mountains and stuff like that. And so we put forth resources to search for them and hopefully provide answers like the other people that we search for.
So to summarize, because that is a large number,
Yeah.
80,000. There's 80,000 American soldiers who went to fight, or including like in training, which you said might even be higher,
Mhm.
and that are still just never returned.
Right. The circumstances of war are chaotic, and
Yeah, man.
you
Wow.
know, especially the further you go back, they were lost, and then the war ended. They put forth the effort with the technology and capability that they had at the time, and unfortunately couldn't find everybody. Well, now technology is advanced, and some of these places are safer to go to, and so we put forth our effort to provide those answers for those families. And when you think about 80,000 missing over the decades, that translates to millions of family members across our nation that are waiting for answers, and they quietly wait for answers. They're not asking for any help or anything like that, but each family still wants to know what happened to their loved ones, and hopefully they'll have those answers at some point.
Yeah, because by now, especially the World War II guys, I mean, you're probably what, speaking with like their grandchildren or great grandchildren at this
Sometimes,
point.
yeah, fewer and fewer of their peers, brothers, sisters, are around. Sometimes even children aren't around, so it's multiple generations
Wow.
later. I mean, now we're encroaching on 8 decades for some of these losses.
And
Um,
what's that like? What's it like? Like, do they still have that, like, it just happened yesterday almost, kind of response?
yes, in some ways, absolutely. It's not really intuitive. You would think, well, it's been a long time. Maybe the family has gotten over it, but MIA families don't get over the loss of their loved ones. And when you think about the tragic loss of somebody that's killed in battle and repatriated, there's another level when somebody is missing. That family holds on to the hope that their loved one is somehow still alive. Um, but when somebody is killed and returned to them, we go through role changes and ceremony and things like that. They know what happened to that person. And then they move on through the grieving process. Well, an MIA family, that grieving process is interrupted with that hope.
Yeah.
Role changes don't occur because the person might come back. There's hope that that person will come back. And then that grieving process is interrupted. And so it's this big void, and that's passed from generation to generation to generation. And we've seen over and over again, families make up stories to fill that void, which are not accurate. And we've even seen families divided based on different stories that both sides have made up. And so providing that answer is really, really important, because this person becomes a mythical, they take on a mythical status. We see altars of some sort in each home. Many times, the next generations are tasked to live up to this legacy.
Yeah. A
And,
lot of
and they're
military they
We've
start
seen
signing
that,
up, and yeah.
definitely. But the wound often is still pretty raw, even though the person that we're interacting with may have never even met the person, their relative, their loved one, whoever it happened to be. And but it definitely is important to each and every family that we've interacted with. It's incredibly important, and not only to the families, but to the nation as a whole, because when you don the cloth of our nation and you swear an oath to the Constitution, we as a collective make a promise to that individual and their family that if they fall in battle, we're going to do everything we can to bring them home. And it doesn't have an expiration date. That promise doesn't have an expiration date. And
Yeah.
so it's important to keep that promise to that family, but it's also important as a collective to make sure that we keep our promise as a nation for the next generation that's going to don the uniform and swear that oath. It's important that that trust is there, and that they know that that we as a collective have their back, and so it's an important mission.
Yeah, yeah. And why I'm so glad we're doing this is because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are they're very familiar with the term Gold Star family,
Mhm.
but there's plenty of MIA families too that take on
Yeah.
a whole different realm of
And
missing.
we've seen that so many of the MIA families um, really just suffer in silence. I have interaction after
That's so
interaction.
sad. That's so sad.
It is. And it's almost like I can't really explain it correctly, but even though I've experienced it several times where I'm at a presentation or sharing this work with a group, and most of the time there's one MIA family at least in the crowd. And I've seen it over and over where at the end of a presentation or a talk, they'll kind of walk to the front and say, I don't know if I should be bringing this up or if this is important. But I have an MIA in my family, and like, no, this is absolutely what we do. This is exactly what we're here for and exactly what we want to hear.
Yeah, you're talking to the right guy right now.
Yeah. But that conversation happens over and over again, and it's just it's difficult to talk about, it's painful to talk about, and so it just kind of gets put on a shelf, and people try to move on with their lives, and some not even conscious really of the impact that this loss has had on their lives. It's just not forward in their mind. It's kind of been put in the back on the shelf, and um, but boy, you see the impact that happens when they have answers, and even acknowledgement is huge. We have hundreds of family members that reach out to us all the time, and the first thing that we do is we confirm and acknowledge the loss of their loved one and the sacrifice made by that individual, but also their family over the decades. And many times this is the first time anybody's ever done that. They might have received a telegram 70 years ago, and that's it.
Which is
And
so sad. It's so
yeah,
sad. A telegram you're just getting like in the mail or so.
yeah.
No face-to-face interaction, just so bureaucratic government sent over to you. That's just the worst way to hear about it.
Yeah. And so, and just knowing that there's people out there doing this, and we don't have a relationship to their family, they don't have a relationship to us. It has a pretty significant impact, even that alone. And then when you start providing information about the loss, or if you have the ability to execute a mission, you can imagine the impact that has. And of course, there's been times where families have reached out to us and they've asked about their loved one, and we've actually done work related to their loved one, or sometimes we found their loved one, and that's as you can imagine a life changing event. Now we don't actively seek out MIA families. Our process is we don't want to create any false hope or anything like that. Of course, we would never make a promise. There's no guarantee we could ever find anybody, and we don't want to create any false hope. And so, we don't want to create more harm. And so, but if and when they reach out to us, we don't keep anything from them. We share the information that we have, and then
what you can do
from there. Mm-hmm.
You used the word repatriated before. Now, for those who don't know, would you mind walking us through kind of what that process is like?
Yeah. Well, the process of a recovery is, I'll start from the very beginning. This all starts typically in a basement of an archive or something like that. Some sort of research creates the case. We have a full-time historian on staff. Dr. Colin Colburn is constantly doing proactive research to build out the database that we have now, which is about 700 cases associated with about 3,000 missing Americans. And then we'll assess those and execute missions based on, highest likelihood of success, resources available, access to the area that we want to work in. We'll conduct a search mission on land or water, and depending on what the environment is, using different technologies to execute that search. If it's an underwater mission, we'll use automated underwater vehicles and side scan sonar to map the ocean floor, and then dive points of interest that might be man-made, hopefully aircraft that we're looking for, something along those lines. If it's too deep, we'll use robots to investigate the site. And then once we find a site, we'll determine what kind of aircraft it is, if it's an aircraft site, and then exactly which aircraft it is. And once we do that, then we know the crew associated with it, and if they're MIA or not. And from that point, a recovery mission will be planned and executed. And that's all in coordination with the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, which is the DoD agency that's responsible for accounting for missing Americans. We're also a partner with them, so sometimes they ask us to do portions of these missions to include recovery. And so when we conduct a recovery mission, we'll collect any and all osseous material that we find, so bones or anything like that, and then other material that can assist with the identification. So you can imagine artifacts like dog tags or rings or watches, life-saving gear, anything like that that can assist. And then all of that material is transported back to the United States to a lab either in Hawaii or in Nebraska, which is where the DPAA labs are. And we can't do the identification, the official identification that is restricted by Title 10 to DPAA. And in those labs, they'll do a blind identification using all of that material. And that also includes things like DNA, examination of dental records or bones and things like that. So if somebody broke their right arm when they were 7 and, we find a right arm that has been broke and it makes sense that it was a 7-year-old or something along those lines, that triangulation of data will assist with the identification. And then once that occurs, it's pretty much the same process as if the service member was killed last week. Their family is informed, and then the process moves forward from that point, how the family wants to move forward. So they'll memorialize them how they want. They could be buried in Arlington National Cemetery or their local veteran cemetery or a local cemetery or whatever process they want to go through. Full military honors are provided, and then it moves forward from there. So yeah, it's a long process, that I explained it really quickly, but it takes a lot of time. I mean, as you can imagine, the research takes a long time, a search mission takes a long time, documentation. I mean, each one could be up to 4 different missions or something along those lines. Recovery efforts are pretty difficult underwater, so it takes a lot.
You only got so much oxygen in that tank, man.
Yeah, but it's pretty amazing what we're doing now because we're going deeper in our searches as well as recovery. We're doing some pretty amazing stuff that I never figured we'd be doing. A decade ago, I couldn't fathom what we were doing.
No, just imagine what another decade would do.
I can't. I don't even try to pretend. I just try to stay open to innovation, and I get excited about that innovation when it occurs. And believe it or not, the technology underwater seems to be advancing a lot more quickly than terrestrial technology. We are using some drone technology to put sensors on in deep jungle and things like that, but the stuff we can do underwater is pretty amazing. And for the most part on land, it's still mapping with GPS, boots on the ground and machetes in hand or whatever it needs to be to find the sites and then document the sites that way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how far down can you guys see with like sonar and equipment? Are you guys searching, like scanning the area on a boat ahead of time, or are you diving in and then diving in with the equipment and seeing how far it can go down and scanning?
Yeah, so when we started this, we were using basic scuba. We would get online, a group of people, and as long as your oxygen lasted, you would search the ocean floor that way, and you pretty much weren't going below 100 feet. You just didn't have time on the bottom to work and safety and things like that. But now we're using side scan sonar, the same technologies and protocols that people use when they're searching for super deep sites or big losses that you might hear in the news or something like that. And the robot technology can pretty much go all the way down, but we have a limitation because we can only go to recover to a certain depth. So does it make sense to try and search, 10,000 feet or lower? It doesn't right now. But our colleagues at Scripps have found sites, down at the 1,000-foot level. We're finding in the 200-300 level all sorts of different things. 200-300 level now is where we're getting where there's a high likelihood that we'll be able to conduct recovery. And we're keep on like as I mentioned, we keep on advancing technology that allows us to work at greater depth. So working with the experimental dive team with the United States Navy, they can go pretty deep for a recovery mission. We don't have that capability, but working with them. But we're doing all sorts of innovative things to see, can we use robots for recovery and things like that at some point in the near future. All those things are opportunities on the horizon. Right now, it's still pretty much we need to put a human down there to do this recovery, and it's not basic diving. We've just recently partnered with Legion Undersea Services, which is primarily all former Navy divers, and this is their realm, but they can do almost anything you can imagine underwater. Navy trained them very, very well, and they do this job very, very well. But if we need to do a recovery where you're moving pieces of aircraft around underwater, well, that's not basic scuba. That's not even advanced scuba. That's some pretty advanced underwater work. And so that's salvage work as part of the recovery effort. We're moving dredge systems and things like that around underwater. So they really need to know what they're doing. And so we lean into them for our recovery missions underwater. And then, of course, having the right archaeologist on hand to make sure all the archaeology has been done the right way. It's pretty advanced mission. It's pretty crazy.
It's a lot, yeah. I mean, there's a lot goes into it, and I like how you brought up Palau before, because when I hear the word or the number 80,000 missing, it's hard to wrap your head around that, just because we're so gifted with the technology and everything we have today, and not being involved, especially in a world war like World War II, where it involved almost like every country in the world to some degree, and Palau is like the perfect kind of explanation, I would say, as to why that number is so high. Because you think about it, a little background on Palau too, and the Mariana Islands that are right off the east and southeast coast of the Philippines. And we were over there in 1944. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're probably a much better historian at this than I am. Where couple dozen U.S. planes that got shot down, a ton of American POWs taken and either executed, buried, cremated, or died at the Bataan Death March. And that's also apparently where the world's deepest parts of the ocean exist, which is, the Philippine Trench, which at its deepest point is about 34,000 feet deep, and the Mariana Trench being about 36,000 feet deep, which is, to put in perspective, Mount Everest is 29,000 feet deep. Yeah. So when you put those two together and you think about the amount of chaos that was taking place in the summer of 1944, it's insane. And it kind of starts to now take that and put that in, say, Europe, put that equation around the world, and you kind of start to realize why that number is so high, taking into account too back in World War II, where that just was, it's also a pretty long war. And it's so far from the United States. It's so far from our resources too, to where we can't just, we don't have bases all over the place like that. And it kind of starts to sadly make some sense on that. You had brought up some of your inland searches too. I'm kind of interested on that, because I'm sure the ocean just is humongous. The bottom of the ocean is absolutely endless. I'm thinking inland, that I'm thinking just from a commoner's standpoint, like, hey, maybe that's the easier approach. And the Bataan Death March out in the Philippines, is that something where I think it was about 10,000 Americans ended up getting killed? Is there a higher probability of you guys finding bodies under the dirt there, or is it the ocean that you've seen a more higher likelihood?
Yeah, well, we each case presents its own challenges, right? So a lot of people think sometimes I laugh because people introduce me still that have known me for years, and they're like, "Oh, this is Derek. He searches for lost aircraft." That's an incomplete statement. The aircraft are our means. Well, there's a reason that so much of our work is around finding aircraft and the MIAs associated with those aircraft. So if an aircraft's been missing for 80 years, it's easier to find that big piece of metal than it is to find an individual that might have been lost.
Oh,
during
because you could probably find that in a plane too, just flying over the sea. You see an aircraft in there, right, from a different point of view.
Potentially. I mean, not likely, but I guess there's a chance.
Okay.
But so lost aviators is a big part of our work. Not our only part, but a big part of our work. We are searching for several prisoners of war that were executed and interned. But so finding a grave where humans have been buried, and it was decades ago, now that adds a different complexity to the search. You know, if you're doing an excavation of an unknown site and you start excavating it, archaeologists will immediately be able to tell if somebody has dug there or graves were there. Now you're dealing with things like, okay, we can exhume a grave if we find the grave, and but then it's like the acidity or alkaline of the soil. What does that do with remains? You know, different scenarios allow them to be preserved and others completely destroyed. So just think, if it's one grave in the middle of the jungle, it's been 80 years, you know, jungle grows quite a bit. It could be very, very difficult to find, compared to an airplane in the jungle that's been missing for 80 years, which is also very difficult to find, but a little bit easier. And so, you know, individuals' loss add their own complexity, but not impossible. I mean, this is a difficult mission. If it wasn't difficult, we wouldn't have it. You know, these service members would have been found a long, long time ago. However, you know, the development around the world encroaches on sites. And so, you know, when that happens, sometimes they discover sites and they may or may not report them, depending on who is doing the development and things like that. But underwater sites, for the most part, are preserved, but some of them are also in danger. Some of them might be too deep to find right now. And again, it's a lot easier to find an aircraft carrier at depth than it is to find a single airplane. But they're also encroached upon in different ways, though. So like fishing, nets get caught on wreckage, and sometimes fishermen have pulled them up and then just dumped them over in the past.
Because they don't know what it is, yeah.
Don't know what it is, or something like that. So that has an impact. All sorts of things impact hurricanes and typhoons, scour certain areas and absolutely destroy sites.
Could you imagine fishing and grabbing a World War II plane wreckage and just and throwing it out without even oh my gosh, that hurts to even hear about.
Yeah. Well, that's what we say. We say, you know, time is not our friend, and this mission is important today because we're going to keep on developing with the growth of our population. You know, time is just going to keep on ticking, and every single day, every single year makes finding these sites more difficult because they deteriorate over time, which makes it more difficult to locate, and of course makes it more difficult to conduct identifications and stuff like that. So land and water missions are both difficult. Finding an airplane and the crew associated with it is quote unquote easier than finding an individual that might be missing. But each case is unique, and each case presents its own challenges.
Yeah, because also too, it might even you know, when you find wreckage, it might not actually be like the right site either, because I know the Titanic, you know, they were finding pieces around within a mile or two, and they think, okay, this is the spot, but in reality, like it is way east. And I feel like with planes, especially where that tail end of the plane, when that gets hit and the plane just goes, I mean, you find that tail, you might think, all right, this is the plane, where is it? But it's actually like 2 miles away, which 2 miles, we're so used to thinking, oh, it's a 2 mile drive, it's quickly. In the ocean, 2 miles is a state, feels like, you know.
Or the jungle, you know.
The jungle too, yeah. You got those machetes. You weren't kidding with that.
Yeah. And there's a case right now that we're working on that's exactly it. We have certain pieces, but we're missing the pieces that we need to find the individual associated with the aircraft. And we've had plenty of cases where we found a piece, and then it took several years before we found the rest of the aircraft that we were looking for, that included the crew or something like that.
Have you ever found like any I'd say like either enemy aircraft or aircraft that you just, you know, were from a war, but you just can't put the exact pieces together for whatever reasons? Maybe it was a part that doesn't have any labels or what?
No, well, we find plenty of things that we're not looking for,
Oh
that's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And we found several former enemy aircraft. In Palau, we found probably just as many Japanese aircraft as we found American aircraft. But in other countries, we found German aircraft or other things. We found different ships that we weren't looking for. We found ancient sites that we weren't looking for. Of course, our archaeologists get excited about all of those sites. No matter what, all of it is documented and turned over to the host nation, wherever it is that we're working. And if it's a former enemy aircraft or another country's aircraft, that information is also turned over to the host nation, but also shared through the appropriate channels back to the embassy of that nation or that nation through the appropriate path.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the projects you guys are working on now? If you're able to indulge us.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't talk about specifics of
Yeah.
cases when they're open, but we do have a team right now overseas in the Baltic Sea. And it's, October, so it's cold. It's not always tropics in the South Pacific or something like that. But they're partnered with another organization conducting a recovery on a site that we actually located last year. So they got about another week left of that recovery. A month ago, we were in the Mediterranean doing a search mission and found multiple sites underwater, which hopefully there'll be a press release going out on that soon. But those are MI related sites.
That's
So
awesome.
the mission continues, right? So we're consistently doing the work. We got more recovery missions on the books that we're getting ready to execute. We got more search missions on the books that we're getting ready to execute. And it's no longer just Palau. It's around the world. We've been to 21 different countries now. It's not just World War II. We've been to Vietnam. Our most recent repatriation was Major Paul Abbey's B-52 Navigator, which our partners at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography located that site right before the pandemic and recovered remains from that site. And those have been identified, and he's been repatriated to Springfield, Oregon. We've done a mission in Kuwait associated with Desert Storm. So it's not just World War II. That's just the biggest number.
Yeah.
In most cases. And then, as I mentioned, we're doing training losses as well. So earlier this year, we had a team off the coast of Maine looking for a Hellcat that was lost up there and searching the ocean floor there. And it's amazing, actually, how advanced the technology has come over the years. I mean, in 2012, we were super excited to partner with Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the University of Delaware and start using the side scan sonar because we could cover 20,000 square meters in a mission, and the resolution was about a meter at the time.
Okay.
Well, now that same mission, we could probably cover 100,000 square meters, and our resolution now is down to a centimeter. And so when we were up in Maine, you could see the lobster traps on the ocean floor and the lines going up to the surface.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, really, really cool stuff. Which also kind of means like, oh, do we go back and use that technology in some of the places that we've searched before to see if there's something that we've missed?
Good point.
Because a meter compared to a centimeter is that's a big difference in resolution.
Yeah.
So really exciting stuff. But the biggest thing is the mission continues. We're not sitting on our hands. It was difficult during COVID because we couldn't access other countries, and like everybody else in the nonprofit space, we just got a kick in the stomach. And so but now we're emerging from that. We're doing missions again. We're working on the unilateral work that we need to do on our own, but we're also partnering with the Department of Defense to supplement what they're doing and helping them whenever in any way that we can.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like as time progresses, you not only lose out on time, which is a downer, but your equipment's getting better, so it kind of counteracts each other, I guess, a little bit.
Well, it opens new environments, so every 50 feet we can go deeper. That opens a lot of area that we can search now. And so, and it just keeps on advancing. So, as more robotic technology advances, who knows, maybe we're not even putting divers in the water. We're just using robots to do these recoveries. And that'll be huge. So, it's a lot safer, more efficient, things like that.
Quicker.
It's quicker, unfortunately it's not getting cheaper, but it's
Yeah.
important. Takes a lot to get all this equipment, all these people to these far corners of the earth. The losses aren't in our backyard, so it takes a little work and effort to get these people and the equipment there. But
Yeah, and take into account too the current, the weather. I mean, you guys aren't diving in rain and hurricanes and so too. I mean, when you're going halfway across the world just like the soldiers
yeah,
did. I mean,
yeah, no, absolutely. And
that,
and weather does have a vote. Most of the time, we don't mind getting wet, we don't mind getting hot, cold, other things, but sometimes you just can't do the mission if the weather's
yeah,
too
you got to
cold.
be safe.
Yeah, especially if you're out on the ocean, you know, yeah, Mother Nature has a vote, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask too. You ever doing this and scuba diving as long as you have you ever ran into any like dangerous wildlife while you're in the ocean too?
Well, there's all sorts of things that are dangerous. Wildlife is one potential thing. And then just the mission itself can bring certain inherent dangers. We do everything we can to minimize those. We always have medical personnel on hand. We always have the appropriate safety briefs. And safety is the number one thing. But in Palau, there's saltwater crocs there. There is a poisonous snake, although you'd really have to kind of aggravate it and give it the little, this little piece of skin because his mouth is so small he wouldn't be able to bite you.
Oh, got it.
So if you're kind of a knucklehead, you could get in trouble. The crocs are well fed, so they're not like in Australia where they're man eaters and things like that. So the good thing is nobody's been attacked by a crocodile or anything like that. But then you just have things like, oh, you could trip over a root or something like that, or heat is a big thing in the Pacific or in the South Pacific. It's close to the equator. It gets really, really hot, so you have to make sure people are hydrated, taking care of themselves. Fatigue is a big thing. Over time, you just get worn down. So, for the most part, our missions don't really go beyond 4 weeks because at that point you're just exhausted and
In
you need a
4 weeks,
break.
I was expecting you to say like 10 days or something. 4
Yeah,
weeks is a
no.
while, man.
Typically, we don't have any days off. We're just working. Like I
Yeah.
said, we want to be efficient with our resources, and so we work as much as we can. When we do need a break, we take a break. But yeah, there's and then working underwater comes with its own inherent dangers. There's sharks out there. The sharks aren't bothering us. There's other wildlife that's out there, but there's always a potential danger of some sort depending on where you go. One thing I like to talk about that always catches people off guard is in Palau, in the jungle, there's a thing called poison tree, and most people are not aware of it. And it's good that you're not aware of it because as you can imagine from its name, it's not the best thing, but
Yeah.
it's like a super poison ivy or poison oak that we might
Oh,
expect in the
geez.
States. Except it's really difficult to pick out the juvenile trees. So we'll be walking with our guide Joe Madenga saying, and we'll ask him, "Hey Joe, is this a poison tree?" And there's like 5 trees, like that one is, and they all look the same to us. And but you don't want to rub on it or touch it because the
oil.
oil will get on you and burn you and create blisters and stuff like that. Same thing if it gets on your clothes or your pack or something, and you pick up your pack later, it'll do the same thing. The more mature trees start dripping this sap and they create kind of these black holes or black patches. So okay, don't go there or sit there. But yeah, that stuff can get pretty nasty and cause some scars if you get it and you don't want to get it. So we're all covered head to toe when we're in the jungle, and there's all
No,
sorts of different things that could
yeah,
get you.
no, that's my Achilles heel is poison ivy. Anything in the forest area that's oily, not me at all, because I will get that. I was just back in Jersey for the first time in like a couple months. I didn't even go in the woods. I was in my family's household, and
Yeah.
I got it. I have no idea how. I mean, maybe I touched like some boots or something that
Yeah.
were in the woods or something like that, but I got it. And I was like, I
You
can't.
and our founder Pat Scannon are a lot alike. I think we just set foot in Palau and might not have even been in the jungle yet, just in the hotel or wherever we're staying, and he'll start breaking out with poison tree, and we're always wondering, how does this happen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just attracted to him somehow.
And I always think I would not have made it past a week after birth in the Neanderthal days. Just would not have made it, man. I this whole time we've been talking, I still can't get that number 80,000 missing out of my head. And I checked out your movie called To What Remains. And that movie, if you're watching this right now, you have to watch this movie. I think it's about 86 minutes, 90 minutes or so. It's not that long, but just the entire movie really sets into focus what you guys do, what the veterans have done, and really puts into focus your missions, how much is entailed into that. You learn so much about history, and you really learn a lot about the U.S. military and how spread out we are all over the world in every single climate, every single different time zone. And I was trying to think, okay, how would I be able to describe this in one word? Because if I was like, if I talk about the movie, I was like, I'm just gonna ramble. It's gonna go. I was like, let me limit it to one word, and let me see if I can go from there. And I came back with restorative. Would be the one word I would describe it. Meaning, and what I mean by that is, when I'm watching it, and I'm not gonna give too much away. I won't give too many too much away about it. But a scene that it just flashes to where a pilot has crashed into the ocean. Say back in 1944 is the scene, and they sit there for 60, 70 years and are pulled out by an American who is intentionally searching for them, who was born probably 2 to 3 different generations later, and they're pulled out while searching for them because they are living by the same code that pilot who crashed also lived by, which is just never leaving someone behind. And I say restorative, especially because it's not like it was a local villager or a tourist who is, scuba diving for fun or on vacation and made the discovery. Like it's a mission, sort of like getting bin Laden, like we will never stop looking, which is what you got into a little bit before, whether it's a government agency or a non-government agency. And we don't care how long it takes. An American is looking for you all over the world, underwater, even in the air like you guys are too, and inland, chopping through jungles. I mean, somebody is looking for you. And you also learn what a badass George Bush Sr. was. You really do. I mean, he's sinking Japanese ships at the age of 20. And I think you guys were the ones who found the ship that he sank. I'm giving
part of that team.
I'm giving way too many spoilers. I gotta stop. I'm giving way too much about the movie.
It's still worth watching. You didn't give too much away.
It is. I mean, if you're watching this or listening to this right now, you've got to watch it. Where can people before we wrap up, where can people find, not only the movie, but also like information on you guys, where to find you, where to follow you? How can they help? Is it through volunteer donations, following?
Yeah, we make it as easy as possible. ProjectRecover.org. ProjectRecover.org. They can go there and multiple things. The film that you can watch a preview or the trailer of the film. It'll take you to links to find the film. But the film is on Amazon Prime, Google TV, or Apple TV, Google Play. And then, of course, we want to hear from people. So if people are interested in being a part of the mission, they want to be members, they can go to ProjectRecover.org and express their interests. And then that will start the application process if that's something that they want to do, or they have ability and the time to advance our mission. We're a volunteer-based organization, so we rely on people's expertise and time. If there's an MIA in your family, we want to hear from you, because we want to get any information that we can potentially have that could lead, or can potentially get, that could lead to the discovery of your loved one. We can never make any guarantee, but we might be able to provide some sort of answers. And of course, if we have any information, we'll share that information. And of course, we're a nonprofit. We rely on the charity of the public to execute this mission. But it's not just our mission. This is every American's mission, and so, but not every American can take off to, the South Pacific or the Baltic Sea and traipse through the jungle or swim in the ocean or dive in the ocean. But most people can support from their couch, and every single bit advances this mission in keeping America's promise. And so all of that can be done at projectrecover.org. Of course, we're also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. So please follow us there, and please sign up for our distribution list, and you'll get updates when we make announcements of people coming home and things like that, and big discoveries that we've made. We want to share them with the public. It's important that these stories stay alive, and it's good news. It's a humanitarian effort. It's a unifying effort. It's what people need to be seeing that's going on today in our community. And boy, you summed it up really well. This is a community mission. This is an American mission, not partisan, nothing like that. It's all about the right thing to do on the human level. So we'd love to hear from anybody, and of course, all that stuff can be done through our website, projectrecover.org.
Okay, perfect. I Derek, I can't thank you enough for coming on today, man.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it so much. I mean, what you guys do, this is probably the first time every listener has heard of an organization doing this, and they probably never even thought, there are still people missing from the 1940s.
Yeah.
Well, there's just like an assumption like that there's a bureaucracy looking for them, but in here it's an NGO these are civilians looking from the goodness of their heart, the patriotism that is just through you guys. To speak for everybody who's probably listening right now, we love what you do. Huge fans. The real point of this podcast, really hoping to just enlarge that fan base for you guys even more, because it's crazy stuff. I'm on the Defense POW's website too, and I mean you can go through on their website if you want to see a little bit about maybe some missing in action soldiers in your state. You can go on their website. You can even pick a war, and it'll list the actual soldier's name, first name, last name, rank, military service, service number, their unit, the date of loss, which is so sad. Seeing all the dates of loss being like from the mostly from the 70s and earlier, the country of casualty and their case profile, and realizing that most of these people are 20, 21, 22 years old, and what they've done, being part of the greatest generation. I mean, it's just, we're in a completely different world now. I mean, in comparison to 20-year-olds back then, flying these planes like George Bush, that story, which please guys watch the movie, and this will really hit home here.
Well, it gives me, a huge feeling of gratitude when I look at those names, and you hit it on the head. 20-something, early 20-something years old is the average name of those folks, and I've lived two of those lifetimes. So what can I do to pay it back a little bit? And somehow I ended up in this role, and it's a role that I and every single team member of Project Recover loves and appreciates, and we're just going to keep on doing it until we get that number as close to zero as possible. Yeah,
and I always I get a lot sometimes. I hear, especially from the older crowd, you're mature for your age, and I'm like, I'm a 29-year-old man, I'm like, and I always think in the back of my head, the 20-year-olds, the 22-year-olds flying planes, going into battle where they know, like storming the beaches in the Philippines and in Normandy. They know what's about to hit them, and they still go anyway. And I always think about that, because I always think about the greatest generation, what they accomplished,
right?
Way younger than me. I mean, it's insane. I mean, if I was in the 40s, they'd probably call me like an old geezer back then. And you know what I'm saying?
Well, I remember when I was that age and I looked at, those people in their upper
guys
20s.
pushing 30.
Holy smokes. Now I'm way beyond that. So I can't imagine what they do. No, yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I think about, B-24s. We've found B-24s, and, there's typically about 11 crew on that. And yeah, the senior guy was probably 21 years old,
Yeah.
flying the space shuttle at the time, and is responsible for, the 10 other people in the plane and this mission that you can't put a measurement on. They're flying across the ocean, hoping that they can navigate accurately to the place that they're going to execute their mission under fire, and then make it back, and then do it again the next day, and then do it again, and do it again. And yeah, 21, 20, 22 years old. It's amazing.
Badass kids, man. Some badass kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we appreciate you trying to look for, man. We're gonna be by your side and watch you guys, and we cannot wait to see you guys just develop even further. So thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm sure we'll see you down the road.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll have us back for some positive updates, which we're gonna have some really good news on the horizon that we're excited about.
Little teaser.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you so much for having me.
With every star